Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the RFN podcast. I'm your guest host, MK Martey. Today, I'm joined by Sam Housman, director, writer, and VFX artist whose work blends vintage sci-fi and fantasy. We're here to talk about his series Escape Pod, about two unlikely survivors stuck in the wrong escape pod after their luxury space cruise goes wrong. Escape Pod screens at RFN Indie Fest, Saturday, August 9th at Park RVA. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Escape Pod.
Yeah, so to get us started, let's dive into the world of Escape Pod itself. Escape Pod drops us right into, right away, a wild premise. Two wildly unqualified people hurtling through space in the wrong pod. What was the initial spark for this series?
So ever since, forever, I've always wanted to build some sort of set in my basement. So I've been piecing this together for years and years. And then one day I was talking to my wife and we were like, what if it was like a spaceship? And then it just all from there, it just pieced all together. And I was like, well, who would be the worst two people to be stuck in a spaceship together? And it kind of developed through there.
Yeah, it's part of a larger 10-episode sci-fi comedy series. How do Jack and Rose's misadventures fit into the larger universe you've created?
So I think they're just kind of bystanders. I wanted it to feel very they're not special, they're not super powered, they don't have great knowledge to get them home. I wanted it to feel very personal and feel like it was you or I stuck on this escape pod, where it's just I don't know how to pilot a spaceship, but what would happen if I was in the situation? So I wanted to feel very relatable and very like the everyman stuck on it.
There's a rich tradition of space comedies from Red Dwarf to Galaxy Quest. Where does Escape Pod land on that spectrum, if it does, and what did you want to do differently?
I pulled a lot of inspiration from both Mystery Science Theater aesthetically and the Orville by tone. So the Orville, I think, is one of the greatest sci-fi comedies of a generation. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So I pulled a lot of inspiration from that. So I think it lies between, on that spectrum, I think it lies between Mystery Science Theater and the Orville, which is a crazy place for it to be. But I think that's where Escape Pod lands.
Switching gears a bit, the look and feel of the show are really distinctive. One of the most striking things to me about the project is the production design. You built the entire set out of trash from your basement, I believe. Yeah. What were some of your favorite salvaged materials or unexpected repurposed items?
Well, I think the most stunning in the Escape Pod was the vintage bus seats that I found on Facebook Marketplace. They were, I think, $6. So I think those are the best ones. And that is on the side of this spaceship. There's on the side of the Escape Pod. There's these 4 seats that are in there. And I think they just matched the aesthetic so perfectly that's my favorite buy. But I think maybe the most creative repurposed bit of the Escape Pod is the control panel, which is made out of 2 freezer doors because my freezer door on my refrigerator broke. And I sent away to go get I ordered a new freezer door and it came in and that was already broke. So I had 2 broken freezer doors and I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? And then I just kind of bolted them together and created this really fun looking console in the center of the Escape Pod.
Yeah, that turned out pretty cool. The pod interior feels both futuristic and I guess kind of hilariously wrong. How did you design it to hit that balance?
So I pulled a lot of inspiration from Mystery Science Theater, where their set was literally built out of trash, where that was all spray painted the same color to give it that futuristic vibe. So I was trying to do that, but with like a late 90s feel. I wanted the escape pod to feel like it hadn't been touched in 50 years. Like it hadn't been updated. It was just this old kind of beaten up ship that now they have to live in and survive in.
You come from a VFX background. What did you bring to this project, especially when blending physical set pieces with post production effects?
So honestly, especially in episode 1, there's not a whole lot of effects. It's mostly just some like space assets, because what I ended up doing is designing into the set a few TV screens and monitors. So the windows are just TVs and monitors that I have all controlled and rigged up to be on a loop. That is just like a Blender VFX file that I created, where it's just kind of floating through space. So I created this file, and then I just uploaded that to the computer that powers the escape pod, and then it just kind of plays on a loop. It's really fun to be in, honestly.
Okay.
Really immersive, especially, and it's good for the actors too.
Speaking of actors, moving on a little bit to the characters a bit and the vibe, the premise, at least for this episode, kind of hinges on Jack and Rose being, absolutely the wrong people to survive the situation. How did you shape their personalities and dynamic?
So I was pitching the whole series as it's kind of like New Girl in space. So Jack and Rose are very much modeled after Winston and Cece, if you're familiar with New Girl. So they have the like Winston and Cece vibe, where well, Jack is a little bit of Winston, a little bit of Nick. He's like somewhere in between there. So just kind of like pulling from that inspiration in space, I think, and I think the actors did such a great job with it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that vibe now that you mention it. What's
Yeah.
your approach to writing sci-fi comedy that feels fresh but also kind of like lovingly self-aware?
So I think that's just that is just kind of the vibe of most things that I write. Whether it's like a horror movie or a sci-fi, it always has this kind of tongue-in-cheek um vibe to it, So I think the key points are just kind of like taking the story beats and like what's happening to the characters not super seriously, but then taking the characters and the characterization super seriously. So that way, an audience can relate to our characters, but then they're kind of going through some silly vibes. But the characters don't really think it's silly. Like in the first episode, they launched the emergency guide through the trash bin and out into space. That's dire, but also it's pretty silly. So, but in the characters don't think it's very silly, but our audience does, and I think that helps carry along the tone of the show.
Do you let your cast improvise at all, or is the script tightly structured around like that chaos?
So every once in a while, like they're always willing to try something. Like they're always okay to try something. I don't like holding. If the actors can say something better, like absolutely. But mostly the improvising is like they get the vibe of the line right, but then they can kind of say it in a way that they feel like their character would say it. Every once in a while, Tanner would pull out like some dad joke, or Tanner plays Jack on the show. He'd pull out some dad joke or some joke, and I'd be like, "Cut! No, absolutely not," and we'll go back and redo it. But honestly, for the most part, like they stuck pretty well to the script, and honestly, sometimes they would pull out a really funny joke and we'd keep it in. But so I definitely allow for the possibility of improv.
You've brought in some fantastic guests into this production. How do you choose your collaborators, and how do you write roles with them in mind?
So I think it's super important to write the role first and then go searching for the casting, which is what we did for the whole show. I think episode 3 we had Rekha Shankar on episode 3. It was awesome to get to work with her, and we kind of really like we wrote that part having her in mind, but not being like only she can play this role, you know. But she knocked it out of the park, and she did an amazing job. But in episode 8, we had Clint McElroy of the McElroy family, and who was also just like absolutely incredible to work with. But we didn't have him cast until the 11th hour. I think it was coming out in the episode was premiering in like 3 or 4 days, and we would just like finalize things with him and got it all together. So we kind of cast it after we had wrote the bits and the parts.
What's your process like for directing comedians in a sci-fi space where the stakes can be high, but the performances, like, they need to stay grounded?
Yeah, so honestly, my actors made it really easy for me. They're just so wonderful. They really understood the assignment. They really understood the characters, so it made it super easy. But I think one of the key factors is between each episode, we usually shoot 2 a day. That's how we have the like process nailed down right now. Before and between each episode, I give the actors like 2 hours, maybe like an hour and a half to 2 hours to just sit there and run lines with each other. And this is their time. I call it our chaos time. So I'm out doing something else, getting something ready, while the actors can just like sit with each other, go over lines, and really have an understanding of the episode. And I think that's been the most invaluable piece to shooting Escape Pod, is giving them this time to just kind of play in the space with no one really observing them, just to have them have fun with it.
You've described yourself as a micro-budget filmmaker. What do you think low-budget sci-fi can do that big-budget blockbusters sometimes can't?
I think there's a heart to it. To do anything micro budget, like, I'm not saying there's no heart in big budget sci-fi, because like obviously it's everyone's dream to have a big budget sci-fi. Well, not everyone, but like it's in film. It's a big dream of mine, at least. But there's so much heart that goes into it, because each piece of a micro budget film needs to be like, you need to have all your ducks in a row, and you need to figure out like where you're putting your money and where you're putting your effort. So there's so much, like in the spaceship, like we could have had, if we had a big budget, oh yeah, we'll have someone design it, we'll have people come in and build it. But I was in my basement building the set, and I was in my basement like putting everything together, painting it, and figuring out where more detail needs to go. And there's just so much heart involved in it, and so much passion, that I think maybe some big budget sci-fi loses out on.
Yeah, I really like that perspective. What's one moment in Escape Pod that only exists because you didn't have the money to do it the right way, and maybe it ended up being better?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think in episode 2 and on, there's a character called Al. He's our robot character. He's the robot who lives on the escape pod. And in the original script, I had this idea that he was going to be bouncing around all these different places. He was going to be puppeteered. We're going to need 2 to 3 people puppeteering him. And then I was like, well, we don't really have the budget to bring on more people. We don't really have the time to bring on more people. Or we don't really have the time to film with more people puppeteering one thing. So we ended up just, keeping him stationary in the corner the whole time, and then cutting to him whenever he has his lines. And I think it creates this really fun atmosphere where it's just like we cut over to Al, and it gives him this ability to kind of work within his space. And it just creates these moments throughout the season that make me so happy. I love watching it. And I think that if we had a bigger budget, or, more people, or a different puppet, or if it was bouncing around like a character, it would kind of lose that heart and that vibe.
How do you keep the momentum alive across a 10-episode run when each installment has to be produced with so much hands-on effort?
Yeah, I think it's maybe insanity on my part. A little bit of insanity. No, I love it so much. Like, I love the story. I love the acting. I love the characters. I love the world that, all the collaboration that we've had on it. I love all of that. And I think just knowing that so much work has already gone into it and it's so much fun to like interact with, I think that's what keeps me going. Like it just, I have a good time. Like it's fun to make. It's a fun show to make. And on set, we're all having a good time and we're all laughing and it's not a super rigid set. We're all there to have, we're here to make a good product, but that's fun. And I think that's what carries me on.
What's your timeline for 10 episodes? So do you have deadlines on?
So once we released episode 1, we all the episodes are out now, except for episode 1, which will be back available after the film festival. But so we released episode 1 and hadn't filmed the rest of the season yet, just because of time constraints and different and scheduling issues. We hadn't finished filming, so we started releasing them, and then we told everyone we would have them out every 2 weeks, and we had those deadlines that we had to hit. So that's kind of the deadlines, and we ended up hitting it all. The whole season's out now, so we ended up catching up and then going to a weekly schedule for the last 5 episodes because we caught up and had a little bit of extra time. Yeah.
Even within the pod's, tight space, the universe still manages to feel, large. You're clearly hinting at a bigger universe. How much of a backstory or world building do you have mapped out beyond what we can actually see?
So I have a little bit mapped out of what's happening on Earth. We've started pre-production in a little companion series that is going to be up on our YouTube soon-ish. We haven't filmed it yet. I have all the scripts written for it, but I have that, so it made me figure out like what's happening back on Earth. But other than that, in our story Bible, it is basically open-ended. I have given my writers the ability. It's kind of like this huge improv session where it's just yes and that's how the universe is getting built. Where my writers can come to me and say, "Hey, I have this idea." For example, Galactic Patties. That's the episode 3 with Rekha Shankar. It's an episode where my writers came to me and they were like, "All right, you know that Wendy's you go to? It's in the middle of it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's like when you have to pee on a road trip and you just have to find a Wendy's. It's either that or like the biker bar."
Yeah.
We want them to run into this in space. And I was like, yeah, why not? That sounds great. Okay. So it's just kind of ending my writers. Now, obviously, there has to be a little control because there needs to be a story told throughout. But I think that's what makes the world feel so big, or the universe feel so big. Now, back on Earth, you'll have to stay tuned to see what's going on.
That sounds like a really fun process. What's your dream for the series? Is it more episodes, another season, a feature?
I would love to do another season. Yeah, I would love to do another season. If we can get some funding for it, if we can get some people really excited about it. The people who've watched it have really loved it, so it's been really encouraging for me as a filmmaker to see like fan theories about my work. It's been really fun. But I would love to produce a season 2. We have a couple of ideas of what that would look like. I know we'll produce at least a couple more episodes just to kind of wrap up the story since it kind of ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I would love to do some more.
You've said passion and creativity matter whether you have $10 or $1 million. How do you keep that mindset alive when you're knee deep in cardboard, duct tape, and rewrites? Do you keep that saying, that momentum up when, you're pushing through 10 episodes?
Yeah, I'm such an art. Like I graduated with an art degree. So being able to do a little craft and come up with like the cheapest, most creative solution to an issue or to any of the like, especially aesthetic problems, is so rewarding to me that it's like a little puzzle I get to figure out. So I I think that's how I it keeps me running, because like I love being able to get something for super cheap and have it be maximized in value. I like making the dollar. I like making the dollar stretch out. You know what I mean?
How has making Escape Pod evolved your thinking about what's possible in indie filmmaking?
I think anything is possible in indie filmmaking, and I really believe that. I think a lot of indie filmmakers can get stuck up, not stuck up, but like stuck on the idea that you have to have this huge budget to do what you need to do. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your people, like that's probably the most important part. But I feel like a lot of filmmakers get stuck like, oh, I don't have $1 million to shoot this. Well, just be a little creative and be thoughtful, and you might be able to produce what you want to produce on far less of a budget.
What advice would you give to filmmakers who feel stuck for waiting for the right gear, budget, or timing?
Just do it. Go out and do it. Like, just do it. Like, honestly, that is the thing that I feel like everyone who worked on that set kind of came away with, which is just like, if you put your mind to something and you really work hard on it, you can tell your story and you can make what you want to make. I built the whole spaceship in my basement out of trash for $200. Like, anything is possible. So maybe it's not, maybe you should pocket the story that you think is going to be, you know, your big hit and whatever, but do something else. Do something similar. Make the short film of it. You know, there's just so much to do. You just got to go film something. That's kind of my mantra, is just go film something.
That's really inspiring. Thanks, Sam. So
Yeah,
now
thanks.
we're going to do some lightning questions.
Oh boy.
And what's your favorite vintage sci-fi film or show that people know about?
The first thing coming to mind is Mystery Science Theater. I think it combines that like extra low budget sci-fi into just such it just combines it in such an interesting way, where there are these little stories being told throughout each episode, and I think that's absolutely fascinating to me.
Okay. What's one piece of trash you now believe all indie filmmakers should hoard for future set building?
Styrofoam. TV styro, like when you open a new appliance, you keep it in your basement. I have a huge pile of styrofoam just hanging out in my basement right now.
Noted. Okay. Complete this sentence. In space, no one can hear you.
Wow. Cry, I guess. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of crying going on in Escape Pod.
I love that. Okay. Thank you, Sam, for taking the time to talk with me today and sharing more about Escape Pod. Before we wrap up, can you please let our listeners know where to find out more about the series and keep up with your upcoming projects?
Yeah, so if you go onto our YouTube, This Is a Film About Something Productions. We have all the episodes of Escape Pod Season 1 available now, except for Episode 1, which you can see at Indie Fest on August the 9th. And you can go over to my Instagram, _Sam_Housman, or, you know, follow us on all our social medias for This Is a Film About Something.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, that's all for today, folks. Come out to Indie Fest August 9th. Talk to Sam about Escape Pod. We'll see you guys next time.
All right, see ya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.